What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MyMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. It's Friday the 13th of June. I know it's late. We're doing Sinners. I feel like it's an appropriate Friday the 13th movie for you. It's not Friday the 13th like Jason, but it's got vibes. So click like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I hear people say that. Anyway, just join my cult following here on YouTube so I can eventually sell you merch. It's like a lifelong dream of mine. And let me know down in the comments, what's your favorite sinful movie? Or just confess to me your sins. Say, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. And I will tell you how many Hail Marys and all that good stuff. Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler, has done gangbusters business at the box office and is proving that original films do work still and can make a ton of money if you just trust in a creative team or somebody like Ryan Coogler, who has basically done nothing but hits. Even Fruitvale Station, I mean, to some extent, coming in as an indie, it's not like it didn't have a profile. So I think he definitely has proven himself worthy of being allowed to do something like Sinners. And I think Sinners proves in return why he should continue to be allowed to do things like Sinners. Do I think Sinners should have a sequel? Absolutely not. I think it works perfectly as it is. Please don't mess with the story. Ryan Coogler, do not don't franchise your own thing. Don't cannibalize your own franchise. So Sinners is just a really cool story. It stars Michael B. Jordan, Hailee Steinfeld, Delroy Lindo, Jack O'Connell, and honestly, a bunch of people I'm less familiar with. I know that the actor playing Benny is in his debut, and that is sort of, and then it's just like a bunch of actors and actresses that honestly I was just less familiar with. There was Omar Benson Miller, who I guess has dropped the Benson, and it was a little bit confusing for me because he's just Omar Miller now or whatever, but he used to do the 3-name thing. Now he does the 2-name thing, and he plays Cornbread. These people have awesome names, by the way. We've got Smoke and Stack, and then there's somebody named Cornbread, and then there's Slim. It's like, this is like the world of pick your own name and go for it. I think, yeah, I really like that. So the basic story here is that we got two brothers who are both played by Michael B. Jordan because they're twins, who are Smoke and Stack, and they travel back home, back down south to the devil they know. Actually, wouldn't if they came, they say that, but it's like, if you came from up north, wouldn't that also be the devil you know? Like, or did you just visit? At a certain point, if you live there long enough, it becomes the devil you know, because you're there and you're just returning to another devil you know. And it's not like they took a trip to like Japan and they were like, oh God, this was a mistake. We must go back to the deep south. So they return to the deep south so they can open the juke joint, and they've got this Irish beer that they want to sell that they think is pretty dope, and they think it's gonna, bring gangbuster style business, and they want to create this great musical atmosphere, and they seek out musical talent, including the great Delroy Lindo, who is phenomenal in this movie. If he doesn't get an Oscar nomination out of this movie, nobody is. He's great. It is a limited amount of screen time for him. I wish he was in it more, just because he's come so close before. Like, he should have gotten there with Spike Lee's film, but he didn't. And I kind of worry if whether or not it's like, is this enough screen time? I mean, luckily Sinners was a huge movie and has like a 97% of Rotten Tomatoes, so we have a chance of being able to talk about it at the end of the year and still kind of push Delroy Lindo, but I don't know. It's also an opportunity possibly for Michael B. Jordan to finally get his Oscar nomination. I feel like he's been chasing one for a while, trying to choose the right projects, and it just hasn't materialized for him. He's done a lot of really great work, and his name's been in the conversation without him ever getting a nomination. So we could see some award stuff, but yeah, they want to start a juke joint, and all of these people sort of come in, and we see the movie's kind of a slow burn. Like if you heard this was like a vampire movie or a horror movie, and you're coming into this expecting that right off the bat, uh, you're gonna have to wait. Ryan Coogler has a story to tell, man. That's his first priority, is to create the world and the characters in the story. So we have to eventually build there, and we have to learn about the backstory, learn who these characters are, and we get introduced to Benny, who's like the cousin of Smokestack, and he comes along with his guitar, and they're slowly assembling this great music to play. And one of the things, this movie's been sort of also referred to as like a musical. It's not a musical in its traditional sense, but it's a musical in so much that there's a lot of music in it, and it's played within the context of the movie, and it's not just like a score. There's a lot of just sitting around and playing songs, but it's organic. So I don't think, there are other sort of organically musical movies. For the two that came to mind immediately were like Country Strong and Crazy Heart. I don't know why, but those are movies in which music is a huge part, and they do sing within the context of the movie, but also those are not musicals, and they're not biopics either. Like that's what I was trying to avoid, was just saying like Bohemian Rhapsody. Trying to think of something that was like an original story, but also has singing in it, but the singing is just part of the story, and it's not breaking into song, which is kind of what musicals do. So eventually we get the juke joint up and running against, institutionalized racism, which also comes up because it's the Deep South during a certain period of time, of course, it's gotta be a thing. So, which I'm fine with, like, makes sense, but it's funny to think of how, like, that's not the main villain of the movie, is racism. Um, that's like the secondary villain in this movie. So eventually we get to a point where we see Jack O'Connell's character show up, and he's got some people with him, and they present themselves as just travelers who really want to hear some good music. There's something a little off about them, and they do operate by some of the typical vampire rules. So obviously they need an invite to come inside. They need to be invited, but that's what they're looking for. I I don't know that everybody gets an invite. Maybe they all do. I don't know, at some point, but that seems to be kind of the thing that stops them. And they're having a conversation sort of at the door, and they're like, "This really isn't for you," because basically Smoke and Stack have created a juke joint for Black people, and they keep pointing to Mary, who is dating Stack, and they're like, "Why is she here?" And like, she's family. Like, she's the only white person allowed. There's also Grace, who's Asian. So like, it's not completely just only Black people. There are a couple of but there's certainly no one like these white vampires that are trying to get in and ruin the show. So they just want to play music, and unfortunately Mary is too trusting of these vampires, and then things go south, And I feel like that's enough of the story. I just wanted to get to the point where there are vampires, so the way that we'll get to that eventually. Trying not to like overly spoil the movie, but yes, eventually it's a vampire slash horror movie. It's very Southern Gothic. It's very period of the time. It's also the music that they play is constantly infused with all of these different ideas and rhythms. There's even a little bit of Irish in it. Like it felt like Irish folk music at some point. I heard some of that. I was like, this is kind of dope. I feel like Ryan Coogler really spent a lot of time thinking about what kind of music he wanted to have in this movie and how to show it. The action sequences, when we do finally get to the third act of the film, sort of like the third act, it kind of feels like there's part A, part B, because there's like before vampires and after vampires. It kind of feels like it maybe is only a 2-act structure, but it does follow a typical 3-act structure in terms of the rise, fall, climax, and all that kind of stuff. But it's just there's such a significant change in tone and genre at a certain point that it does feel like a part A, part B film. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, this has been compared to From Dusk Till Dawn. I think that movie reveals its hand a little bit quicker than this. I think, at the time, Robert Rodriguez was less concerned about enriching the environment and the characters in the story and culture and all of those kind of things, and more about getting to the guts of the story. Here, Ryan does use a significant amount of runtime. In general, both the movie is it's a little over 2 hours, and then also we do spend a lot of time learning mainly who Smoke and Stack are, and a couple of the main characters. We see them recruit. I kind of lost track of some of the supporting cast, so by the time we got into the actual mix of all these people being together, I felt like there were characters that I hadn't fully developed in my head. Like I didn't really care about them when they were picked off. I'm not gonna say who because I don't want to spoil anything, but there were some supporting characters and I was like, I feel like we didn't really develop that character that much, so I don't really care. That's kind of my only qualm with the movie is I feel like that there were just maybe a couple characters and they're played by actors and actresses that I'm not familiar with, which also hurts because I'm not immediately drawn to them, which that's just me. That's a me thing. That's not necessarily a you thing. But as a blind person, I don't have facial recognition. So oftentimes I go based off of like, who do I already know in a movie and attach myself to those characters. Voices, really distinct voices I like because they stand out among a crowd and I can follow them. The audio description, how it tracks characters and tells me where they're going and where they're not going and who's here, who's present in a room and who's not. So the character's not heavily featured and I can't really remember what it is that they do or why they're here distinctly in a moment where we're supposed to be like, oh no, not that person, that I'm like, I don't, rest in peace, question mark. I don't know. So I think there's an interesting dichotomy between the brothers. I think what Michael B. Jordan is doing here to create 2 completely different characters between Smoke and Stack is interesting. He's making enough different choices. His voice is slightly different, for one. He's sort of changing up his voice so that you can hear the difference, so he doesn't sound like he's talking to himself. Like, I've already seen, I haven't put my review out yet for it, but I'm sitting on a review for The Alto Nights with Robert De Niro. I prioritized this for you, but at some point I'm going to put out my review of The Alto Nights. I just know nobody's waiting on it. And in that movie, it's just Robert De Niro talking to Robert De Niro, and it's frustrating. Here, at least, Michael B. Jordan tries to do something with his voice. And he just doesn't stand there and talk to himself. So, uh, God, even Lindsay Lohan in Parent Trap, it's like one of them is British, one of them has a British accent, and the other one doesn't. So, uh, yeah, it's nice to not feel like you're losing your mind listening to the same voice having a conversation with itself. So yeah, I liked Sinners. I like I like the style. This film's got style out the ass. Just like it's full of just suave coolness. Just it knows exactly where it is. This movie is not suffering from identity crisis at all. Like Ryan Coogler is very self-assured as to exactly what kind of movie he wanted to make and how different he wanted it to be, sort of jarringly so that way for his first original feature we start to see what he would be like as a true auteur, not having to filter the ideas of franchises and previously introduced characters and sequels and all those kind of things, or even based on a true story, which is what Fruitvale Station is, but like a truly original concept that he comes up with, and he has full and complete control over sort of the direction of the story and how to tell it. And I dig this. I think this is great. Um, and I'm really excited to see the next thing that Ryan Coogler does that's original. I'm also just in general excited to see anything he makes because his consistency rate at this point is flawless. I love all his movies. Fruitvale Station is fantastic. Creed is fantastic. The first Black Panther, and I also really love Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Um, he just knocks them out of the park one after another. So, Sinners is just another home run for him. He is an incredibly consistent director. Um, uh, will this get him an Oscar nomination? I don't know. We always had this problem with horror movies at the Oscars, and we did kind of have a little bit of that last year because we had so many horror movies that were floating. There was an abundance of excellent horror towards the end of the year, and we were talking about obviously The Substance, which ultimately did get a Best Picture nomination and a Best Director nomination and a Best Actress nomination. Things that originally we were like, man, if this could just get Demi Moore and makeup, you know, that would be enough. Ultimately, Hugh Grant couldn't manifest Heretic into a nomination for himself. Um, Nosferatu was limited to technical categories, but it was nominated a couple times in technical categories. So Sinners has a path forward, but it's not necessarily a solid path. It'll be interesting to see how in the later part of the year people remember the first big hit of the year, the first big critical biddle, first big critical uh, darling of the year, and how they reward it. But man, I gotta believe there's score, because even when they're not singing, I don't know how much of the music is original, how much of the songs. I have a feeling not many. But God, if there's an original song in here, fucking nominate it. I just like the music in general, just in the background. When we're not hearing, this film is so steeped in music that even when they're not singing, just the score that pulsates through the movie is delicious. It's delicious. I thought the sound design was really good. I'm sure it looks fantastic. Cinematography, production design, costume design. I'm sure all that stuff looks terrific. Visual effects, I don't know, maybe. It depends. I'd like to believe Ryan does a lot of practical effects and not just computer generated, but because I think in the horror franchise there's some there are ways in which we think, oh yeah, well that has to be computer generated, and we just sort of accept it and we're like, that's fine. And then there are other ways where we're like, practical effects please. And I feel like in horror movies we much prefer practical effects to computer generated, and we can often tell when it's CG gore instead of practical gore. So and there are some gory moments here. This film is not without gore. It is also not the goriest film that I've ever had described to me either. Not even close. And before I could, when I could see before I lost my vision, I did see like the entirety of True Blood, so I'm used to sort of just random vampire violence. I know it's a random thing to bring up, but that show was pretty oddly violent. It wasn't like Buffy. It would be weird if I said Buffy. I watched Buffy, so I'm used to vampire violence. I'm trying to think of something that was like that was gory and familiar, and that I watched a lot of. I'm sure I watched like other vampire things, but that was the one that stood out to me as an example for vampire violence. Uh, so yeah, it's. I think I think Sinners is going to go down as being one of the top films of the year. For me, I did want a little bit more from the supporting cast. That's it. That's it. That's all I wanted. It's my only qualm is that I felt like there were some characters here that I was supposed to know them better than I knew them. And I spent so much time learning about Smoke and Stack and their cousin that and to some extent Mary when she comes into the room, although she doesn't really take over the story. She just is in the film a lot because she's Hailee Steinfeld, and I think it's odd because she feels like she's the female lead, and she feels like maybe not the most organic female lead that you would choose for this. But I didn't really get to. I felt like she was the female character that I knew the most, and the other women in the cast I didn't know as well, and I would have liked to spend a little bit more time with them. So just so that everybody makes it well. That's it's little stuff. It's the stuff that you kind of, when you're sitting there going, is it an A, is it an A minus, is it in my top 10 or top 25? Where is this film? It's the little nitpicky shit at the end of the thing, because I like the film and I recommend it for sure. I like the audio description to it. In terms of its writing, in terms of the narration, I thought the narration was kind of flat, but whatever. Uh, I, you do you. Uh, I mean, we could have more, but I don't know. It's some people prefer like droning flat narration. It for me. It's really mostly about, is it written well first? Because even a dynamic performer who has nothing to say, it's to the script. Like audio description is always about the script first, and then kind of the voice performer enhances it. I don't know this was the best enhancement, but yeah, it was written well. So, Sinners. I'm gonna give it an A minus. Yep. And as far as if I was trying to predict awards potential right now, I don't feel great about it. If I'm being honest, I think I'm worried it's going to be limited to tech categories. I don't want it to be limited to tech categories, but I feel like if anything, it's going to play like a Dune Part 2, where because it came out so early in the year, we're going to end up having to like drag it to the Best Picture race, and it's going to be in the bottom 5 and not the top 5, and nobody's actually going to be projecting Sinners to win. Ryan will probably not get the director nomination, sort of like how Denis did not get the nomination last year for Dune. Acting nominations probably won't happen like they didn't for Dune. It's like every once in a while we do remember that a film opened at the beginning of the year, like Everything Everywhere All at Once. But most of the time we go, oh, there was a film at the beginning of the year, like Challengers or Air. Whoops. We forgot to vote for those. We forgot to put those on the ballot. Shit. Okay. So, Sinners could be that too. Sinners could be Challengers. So, I don't know. But I think at least it has, maybe what Challengers didn't have outside of maybe like editing and score, is that it has a wider range of potential to be nominated across all of the technical categories. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I would be shocked if it didn't get any nominations. That would surprise me. How many? That's a question. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I will see you guys on the other side.